No, my hours aren't bad. But it's more of just the responsibility. And the new girl is great. She gets stuff done really quickly, and is always churning stuff out. But everything needs to be prepared and customer facing and all of that stuff. And then I have to, check in with her and see, like, why did you make these decisions? What did you do? So when I get on the client calls, I know how to answer because I didn't necessarily do all the work. So it's
Understandable.
just a very different, it's kind of like a management position without really being a manager because she doesn't report to me. So, it is what it is.
So you can boss people around, but you just don't have to deal with all the negative things that come with being a manager.
Right. But I also don't have the authority to like fire anyone.
Do you usually want that one? Like,
I don't know.
I don't know if I would want to have that responsibility of telling someone you're fired.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, yeah, there's something about it. It's a little tricky.
Yeah, I've been in that situation a couple of times across my 9 to 5 career, and it's not fun. It's always like you always feel bad, like right afterwards. It's like you never want to be the bearer of that kind of news.
Right. Yeah. It's tricky. It's tricky stuff. All right. Well, I don't know who else is going to be jumping in to watch us live, but we can go ahead and start recording the show.
Okay, I'll see if I can get Shadow Price here.
It is like a Sunday afternoon, so it is not the most busiest
I'll send
time.
him a link.
Yeah, and I posted stuff on Twitter, so if you want to share anything
Oh yeah,
on the tweets.
this is what happens when I wake up too late. My whole day is messed up.
All right. Oh, did you pick your little dude?
Which dude? Sorry.
So my little Charmander guy. Did you look down at the bottom of the stream in the channel? Here, let me open it up.
Okay.
Robots Radio, Twitch. So if you scroll down under the player, there's a little stream avatar section where you can kind of pick different guys.
Oh.
There's lots of pages of them, so you can choose which one you want to be. So like I need to find I had a little robot guy. Looking through. There's so many Pokemon in here.
Pokemon is my jam. I'm so excited about the new Pokemon game that's coming out this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's one of the games that are day one purchases for me. And with the previous game that came out, Pokemon Let's Go, I literally spent an entire week playing through it. I spent like 100 hours in that game. So reminiscent of Pokemon Red and Blue, if you've ever played those.
Yeah, you know what?
It,
I was just old enough to not catch them all.
okay.
I got in on it like a little bit late, so I've been able to enjoy them mostly through my kids.
Okay.
But yeah, I've only dabbled in a little bit myself. I've never actually played through an entire game, but I've watched things been played, if you could say it like that.
It is a time commitment. Let me put it this way. If you're looking for a game that's not going to take you a long time to play through, this is not the game for you.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
between catching all the Pokemon, between going through the story and everything else in the game, it's a lot. With any of the most recent Pokemon games, like I own all of them. I've played like two.
mm-hmm.
It just way too time consuming. And then there's Destiny, of course.
Right,
And,
yeah,
I think we talked about it briefly before the show, and I've been trying to make an effort to do flawless runs of all the raids because I'm trying to get the Shadow Seal and the Ravensbane seal,
mm-hmm.
which you have to do a bunch of challenging activities and not die and stuff like that,
Right.
and then
Right.
get a seal in the game.
Hey, let's before we get too deep into things, let me do the little intro, and then
Yes,
we can
of course.
we can do stuff that we won't have to like reiterate on. So we might as well kick it off. All right. Welcome, everybody, to another Robots Roundtable. I am your host, Tom or Robots, and this is the show where the hosts of the Robots Radio Podcast Network get together to discuss the things that they've been doing and what's going on in the worlds of games and the things they've been enjoying in the last week or so. And this week, I have just one of our hosts, one of our newest hosts, Cornholio from the Destiny Show podcast is with me. Welcome, Cornholio. How are you doing?
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm doing pretty well. It's warm, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It's almost 90 degrees out here today, and yesterday it was like 105. So just
Holy
trying
moly.
to stay cool and playing a little Destiny, catching up on work. And I actually had quite a late start today. I didn't wake up till about noon because I wasn't really feeling well, so I ended up staying up for about 3.5 hours in the middle of the night, just chilling.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's been an interesting start to the morning / early afternoon, but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you could make it. We had a few other hosts that were hoping to make it, and then things came up. And weekends are like that. We record this show at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And not always can we get everybody together. I don't think we've ever had a show with everybody. That would be a lot of hosts. But some weeks we have more and some weeks we have less. But this week we are recording this and streaming it live on Twitch at twitch.tv/robotsradio. So I have a feeling if this goes well and everything works out and I didn't forget to push any buttons, that this will be something that we do every week. So let's just put that on your calendars. If you guys want to hop in and check out the episode live, we'd love for you to jump in chat and send us messages about things while we talk. And, you know what I enjoy doing, Cornholio, when I watch people stream live and record podcasts at the same time? I enjoy trying to make them crack up with my comments in chat. So, I mean, you're welcome to do that too if you're listening and want to jump in. That way we would enjoy the entertainment of that, I'm sure.
Challenge us.
Try to come up with some really funny stuff that we can't keep a straight face on and make us crack up while we record. That would be awesome. So this week we've just got the two of us, and I know what I'm going to be talking about. Is there something specific that you wanted to go over? I know you have some thoughts on Destiny and your experiences most recently with that. Was there anything else you wanted to go over this week?
Well, I guess I kind of was going to mention this movie that I saw last night called Alita, but then we got talking about Destiny, and I'm like, well, I can probably talk more about Destiny than a movie that I saw one time.
Right.
So I
Right.
guess Destiny would be the main topic today.
Okay. Well, why don't you give me a little bit
Alita.
about Alita? And I think I've heard the name, but I'm not very familiar with it. What were your thoughts on that?
Alita is a movie that came out in February, and it's about it's not really a girl. You're led to believe that she's a girl because she looks like a girl, but she's actually a lot older, and she is part robot, part human.
Yeah, and this is like an anime thing.
Yeah, it is an
Right.
anime movie.
Okay, I'm
So the
remembering
style is-
the trailer now that you described that.
Yeah, and it's set in the future with an abandoned girl / female. Her name is Alita, and she was found in a scrapyard in the Iron City by this guy who's, I guess, scientist / cybernetic researcher, and he pretty much builds or restores characters into like a physical form. So he'll take someone's body and he'll be able to pretty much make her into a person. And it's about this battle that goes on between good and evil, of course, very typical of anime films. But I enjoyed it. It was a really good movie.
Cool, cool. Now, are you big into anime stuff? Is that, or is this kind of a departure
Um,
from what you normally watch?
Not really. It's kind of a departure, honestly, because I don't really watch too many animes, but then again, I don't watch too many movies. I'm a gamer,
Yeah,
so whatever free time I have, I usually spend playing video games, whether it be on the Nintendo Switch or on the PC, or just playing Destiny and catching up with new content that's going on there. So yeah, I would say it's a bit of a departure, but I do enjoy some anime style movies like Sin City, for example. That was a really good one from 2005, I want to say.
yeah, that was a while ago. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've dabbled in watching animes, but I mean, I'm not super deep into the culture or anything. But every so often, when there's like a really good one that comes out, I might pop it on. My biggest issue with anime is oftentimes I enjoy the concepts and the action and those kinds of things, but when it comes to the way the characters are just so over dramatized, like everything is like a big deal and everybody's always like that kind of stuff starts to wear on me. Even something like Attack on Titan, I thought was a really cool concept, and um, is very neat in some ways, but in other ways, it's just they just dwell so much on every little feeling and every little emotion, and it's like, okay, just move the plot forward. We got this.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. The exact same way. It almost feels like a lot of animes don't really feel very realistic, or like
Yeah, I don't think they're
just
going for that. It's more
it
of a
they're not, right? It's
no.
like it breaks the immersion for me in some way when it's like just not realistic. I mean, and you do have, sci-fi movies that are not made to be real, but um yeah.
Yeah, yeah. There's a weird barrier there. Okay, well, let's move on to a little bit more of the things that we are familiar with and can talk about in much better detail. So, what are your thoughts on Destiny recently?
It's grindy.
It's
It is
grindy.
grindy. I'm almost overwhelmed by how much there is to do in the game right now,
Hmm.
because I've been trying to chase after the shadow seal that you pretty much have to beat a bunch of activities on flawless without dying. So it's interesting because on the one hand, I think that it feels like there's so much to do, but then on the other hand, it feels like, is it worth chasing after the things that there is to do in the game, but it takes so long for you to achieve those things?
Right, right. That's interesting because early on with Destiny 2, and I'm by no means as experienced in this as you are. What I do recall from especially right when it launched, and then like the next 6 to 12 months, was that there was this general consensus that there just wasn't enough to do, or there wasn't enough worthwhile to do, I guess. And then the raids started to drop, and then there was the, well, okay, we've done that, but now what kind of feeling. Um, in the sense that I've gotten, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that they've added a whole lot of other stuff. But what you're saying is that it's almost too much at this point.
In a way, yes. I feel that what they did add into the game, it it doesn't add as much depth to the game. Like the activities feel rather repetitive, and after you have done them two, three, 4 dozen times, it then starts to really kick in, and it starts to feel like, well, I already did all these things.
Mm-hmm.
What else do I have left? Because continuing to play those activities, there's not enough unique rewards for you to chase after in order to progress. And it feels like after a certain point in Destiny, your progression just stops. You're at the maximum level cap. At, by that point, you probably have gotten all the exotics, and then the seals that you get in the game, it almost feels like it's not always worthwhile to complete them because of how grindy those things are and how little the reward is in the game. So I think they could definitely work on improving the reward system. Like, imagine if you complete a seal in the game. Like,
So
yes, it's really grindy. Yep.
So, real quick to jump in, because we have a lot of listeners who probably aren't super familiar with Destiny. I have a sense they understand what legendary loot is, because lots of games have that. What are seals exactly?
Okay, so seals are essentially, it is a title that goes right underneath your name in Destiny to symbolize that you've accomplished a very challenging set of tasks and achievements in the
Right.
game.
Something.
So it could,
It's similar in like World of Warcraft has these titles that you can have. Elder Scrolls Online, even Elder Scrolls Legends, the card game, has titles that you unlock as you do achievements, and you put it under your name so people can see like, oh, you must have, worked hard at this thing, or you must be good enough a player to have gotten this award or whatever. So it's kind of like that.
okay. I believe so. In fact, one of the creators of Destiny, his name is Luke Smith. He was pretty big in the World of Warcraft scene before he started working over at Bungie. So I'm sure a lot of the influence does come from those type of games,
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
it sounds very much like that. But yeah, you get the seal, but that's really all you get. You don't really get an emblem. You don't really get any special armor. It almost feels like there's not enough to make it worth it, but at the same time, there's nothing else to really do. And that's kind of where I'm at in the game, because I've played the new raid at least 2 dozen times now.
Oh man.
So I got all the drops from it, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm done. But at the same time, it allows you to move on and play other games, right? That you have, and it's never healthy to play one game and only one game for like an extended period of time. It's always good to take breaks.
Yeah, it's always nice to kind of change things up a little bit. And I mean, I change things up a lot. Like I jump between lots of different games because I enjoy. That's something our listeners have heard about me in the past. But so if they were to fix this, what kind of content would you want them to add in, or what solutions do you think there could be?
I think they would need to overhaul the reward system and how that works.
Okay, so how does it work now, and how would you want it to change?
So right now, you get pretty much like four um, set of things from the raid when you complete a raid. Like let's say Crown of Sorrow,
Mm-hmm.
you get helmet, you get gauntlets, you get chest piece, you get boots. Actually, you also get a cloak, and then you have four different weapons that are part of that activity. After that, I it pretty much once you have all of those things, there's no reason to play that game again. I think one way they can fix it is to add more challenging versions of those raids that give you those armor pieces and those weapons, but with extra perks that make it worthwhile. So let's say instead of getting a regular weapon, you get an epic version of the weapon for completing that more challenging activity. So adding tiers
Mm-hmm.
to the weapons and the armor, I think, would definitely help, and offering more unique um, perks on those weapons that make them stand out from the rest.
Yeah, so that's actually very similar to some of the more like traditional MMO type games. So Elder Scrolls Online has normal versions of dungeons, and then it has like hard mode versions of dungeons, and you can trigger the hard mode once you are towards the end, or towards I haven't done this a ton. Again, I don't dive too much into the end game content, but there is like usually a scroll you can read. I think it might be at the beginning of the dungeon, but in some cases I feel like it's before one of the bosses, where if any of the players reads the scroll, it triggers hard mode, and then everything is just more difficult. It's the mechanics change, that kind of thing. In World of Warcraft, they've solved this by adding in. There's actually multiple tiers of dungeons, and then so you move from like the dungeon finder, which is the absolute easiest. Everyone can just jump in, learn the dungeon, play with people they've never played with before. And then you move up to the normal dungeons, and then eventually you get up to the mythics. And then there's even multiple levels. So you just keep on rising through the different mythic versions of the level, and you unlock keys. And it's a very complex system, but every time you move up in that system, it becomes more difficult. And they have a whole list of what are called affixes, which apply to the enemies and the things that happen in the dungeon. So that, for example, one of the affixes might be that the enemies are diseased. And if you kill them too close to your characters, then they can disease your characters, and then your characters can pass on that disease to other people, or things like that. So it changes the way you have to actually engage with the actual mechanics itself in order to make it through the same content, which helps to keep it fresh. Do you think something like that could work in Destiny? I mean, it's a shooter, so it is a little different than something like World of Warcraft or Elder Scrolls Online.
I definitely think it can work in the Destiny universe, especially with the game almost wanting to be a MMO, but it just hasn't fully embraced that style. And I don't know if you followed this, but the developers came out back in June and stated that Destiny is going to be more of an MMORPG style game in the future. So I think the version of Destiny we'll get this fall will be much closer to what we can expect from a traditional MMO.
So, okay. So this is a really interesting conversation, because one of the things about a traditional MMO is, sorry, I just took a drink and I'm trying to talk and drink at the same time, is that there's usually some sort of fee. World of Warcraft still has the $15 a month fee to subscribe. Elder Scrolls Online, you can play the base content for just purchasing the game, but if you want to subscribe, then you get extra perks and you get automatically a bunch of the DLC unlocked and that kind of thing. You also get a bigger bag to hold stuff. Can you imagine a version of Destiny that would warrant a subscription fee? Because it kind of, if they're going to go in that direction and they're going to be adding more content and building it out more, then I would imagine that you would need some sort of, I don't know, monetary way to make sure that you can keep the team funded, basically. Every so often you release a new expansion and a new season and everyone buys it. I guess that works. I don't know how much they make from that, and if that holds them over for the whole year worth of development or not. What are your thoughts on that?
What Bungie is doing this time around is there's going to be a DLC that's, I want to say it's $35 or $40, and it's a standalone DLC. You don't have to have any of the content prior to that. They will be giving away a free version of Destiny this September with New Light, which will include the vanilla Destiny 2 game and the first 2 expansions.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to purchase the Forsaken expansion, you can. And I believe that's going to drop in price to about $20, I would imagine. So if you want that expansion, you want to experience the activities from that expansion, then you can buy them as a standalone. In addition to Shadowkeep, which will be the expansion coming out in September, the new expansion, it's going to be $39.99. Just checked.
Mm-hmm.
You can also purchase seasons, which are going to be $10. So every 3 months, you can spend an additional $10 to get smaller bits of content that will be released throughout the year before whatever bigger expansion comes out in the fall, which is kind of a traditional thing that Bungie has done with the Destiny franchise.
Okay, so that seems like enough funding in
So
order to keep that
that's
kind of thing going, because it's very similar
yes.
to a subscription without an automated recurring feature. Basically, they're letting everyone know, hey, we're going to be coming out with this content. If you like this content, then pay the money. You'll get what you get the next thing. That's basically it.
And it's interesting because in a way, I think a subscription model would benefit Bungie to be able to fund hiring more people to create more content in the game, because that's one of my criticisms with the seasonal content that would come out in between the big releases, right? It almost feels like the content that they're coming out with is good, but there's just not enough of it, and I want more. And if it means paying more money to get more content, I wouldn't mind it.
Mm-hmm.
And I do hope maybe sometime in the future they can adapt a financial model that will allow them to realistically make this happen, where we have bigger expansions more frequently, maybe have something that comes out every 3 months, but it's just a bigger release with more stuff to do, with more unique things going on.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Interesting. Yeah, I haven't dived in enough to get into the endgame content to feel like I'm even caught up with with even getting my character level. Like I just haven't played enough to get that far. So, okay, cool. Anything else you had thoughts on with Destiny?
The Menagerie is fun. The Crown of Sorrow raid is fun. It was cool for first month, and now I'm like kind of getting a little burnt out, honestly. But it's a fun game. If you haven't played it, definitely check it out. You might like it if you're into shooters, or if you were into the Halo franchise back in the day. I think that Destiny has a lot to offer, and a lot of things they do really, really well. It's tough to stay engaged after playing the game for thousands of hours. So I must stress that I am very much a special case in terms of feeling the burnout from Destiny, just because I do play it pretty frequently.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. For somebody who hasn't jumped in before to get like one of those packs that has all the first and second year stuff, I mean, you will have so much to do in it. You're not gonna hit the thousands of hours of playing anytime soon.
And a lot of that content is going to be free come this September, so it's going to be worthwhile checking it out if you have never played Destiny, because the barrier to entry is so low. Well, non-existent. You just have to have the storage space to be able to load up the content on your platform of choice.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, cool. And thanks for the update on that. Let's see. This week I wanted to bring up something similar. And for the for my regular listeners, don't kill me, everyone. I'm sure you've seen me playing this in the Discord. So typically I spend most of my gaming time playing Elder Scrolls and Fallout stuff. I've got the different podcasts about those games, and fell into a Elder Scrolls Legends, the card game hole, which I mentioned last week, and have still been playing that. I've still been jumping in a little bit into Elder Scrolls Online to make sure I get some of my daily stuff done. But then my wife has been, so to go back on the story a little bit, about a year ago, I went through a very similar phase where I switched over from Elder Scrolls Online to World of Warcraft, because the new expansion was coming out, and I hadn't played really much of it at all in years. And I was like, okay, I've got new eyes on this. I want to see what this is like. And my wife previously played a lot of World of Warcraft. I was always the kind of guy who would jump in for like a month or two at the most, top out my character, and then just move on to something else. And I was like, well, at least want to get through the story stuff because that's fun. And, it's worth paying just to play for a month or two. And she was like, no, I don't really want to jump back into World of Warcraft. I feel like I'll just get addicted to it. And so I was like, okay. And I jumped in, and I stuck around for like 3 or 4 months playing through the content, leveling up my character, doing the dungeons, doing all the regular stuff, the dailies, the world events, all those things. And then after about 3 or 4 months, she finally decided to jump in right at the point where I was getting burnt out on it. And I switched back over to playing primarily Elder Scrolls Online. Well, since this entire time, she's been playing World of Warcraft every night, grinding out her stuff, doing her thing. And so now there's a new, 8.2 update with some new content and some other new stuff for this season. And so I decided, okay, I'll jump back in. And so I paid for 1 month. And this last week I've been playing and joining her on some dungeon runs and those kinds of things. So it's nice to be able to play with your spouse, so that's nice. And I've got some general thoughts about World. Have you ever tried World of Warcraft, Cornholio?
I think I played it a couple of times. I haven't really dived into it. My friend has World of Warcraft at his house, and his wife plays it all the time. So
yeah,
I did get
my
a
wife
chance
too.
to check it out when she was playing it.
Mm-hmm.
And she was doing the whole dungeon thing. I'll be honest with you. The one thing that prevented me from ever really diving into the game is the subscription model and the fact that it's not a game that I'm already invested in, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not a game that I know that I really, really enjoy. So that kind of prevents me from subscribing to one game.
Right.
But it looks like a fun game. It definitely looks like there's a lot to it.
Oh, it's
And
ton.
there's
It's
so many...
huge. I mean, the game's like 15 years old almost. It's it's just massive, and it is the progenitor of a lot of the mechanics that we see in games like Destiny and all these other games. I jumped into it originally when it first launched and played for a few months with some friends, and then fell out, and then have dipped back my toes back in a few times over the years, but never for much more than a month. But the world is fun. The characters are fun. The storylines are fun. The cinematics are extremely well made. So there's a lot there. There's also this, I don't know if nostalgia is exactly the best word, but there's some nostalgia, meaning like if you had been in the game and played the game earlier and then are jumping back in, certain things are going to feel very familiar. Some things are going to be very, very different, but some things are very familiar. But there's this, I don't know, maybe it's the fact that the game engine is so old, and the way that everything works in the menus and the text and the in-game stuff and the names over people's heads. And there's something about it that just still feels like one of those old games. And I don't know, it's kind of quaint. There's just this, you know what it is? It's even things like the sound effects for like when you finish a quest. The little chimes, everybody who's played a Mario game has that like positive association with the sound of picking up a coin or, the music. It's the same kind of thing. It's the dun dun kind of like those tones, the sounds that it makes just give you this kind of nostalgic feeling. There's something about that. I bet people have that for like Halo, you go back and play Halo and you're like, oh, I remember this. It feels old, but it feels good at the same time.
It's nostalgia. And nostalgia plays such an important part in our lives, right? We try to celebrate our past and the good times that we had when we were younger. And especially as we get older, we have memories that are very special to us, like playing games like Mario and Zelda and Pokemon. And so, yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said about nostalgia. And they're actually coming out with games like Halo Master Chief Collection for the PC, rendered in 4K, to bring those memories back, right? So the gaming industry especially is really big on playing on that nostalgia factor.
Yeah, well, and movies lately have been all about that. And, and as I examine that feeling, part of it is being able to, it's the positive association with the things we enjoyed when we were younger, right? There's that. But I think that there's something deeper happening in our brains where it's as if we are being put back into that mindset, and we can remember what It's not just what the thing we're experiencing feels like, it's what life felt like. It's this feeling of, I don't know. I remember a time when I felt healthier, younger, more energetic. Like there's this like, does that make sense? This like,
Yeah.
that it brings me into this mindset of not just that one emotion, but all the other emotions and all the other feelings. It's almost like teleports you in time into a version of yourself, into your body in a way, not just your mind, but your body and the way your body felt. I don't know, something about that. I can't put my fingers on it, but I don't know. My finger, singular,
Yeah.
fingers, plural. Yeah, something about that. It really gets me. Now with World of Warcraft, I've been enjoying the storyline and the there's tons of stuff to do in the game. A lot of the talk about this most recent expansion is that it just wasn't what people were expecting. It wasn't as good. The game lost a lot of regular players to other games like Elder Scrolls Online and Final Fantasy and these other MMOs, probably even Destiny. But there's there's still things about it that are really enjoyable, and I hope there's been so much conflict with what's going on in the company at Blizzard and how that's going, and I don't know. I don't know if you've kept up with any of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I've read quite a few articles about very shaky times going on over at Blizzard Activision. Of course, we had the split between Bungie and Activision,
Right.
and they lost a bunch of money through their stock, and a lot of people were laid off. So there's a lot of stuff going on in the game publishing space between Activision Blizzard and even companies like EA. They're not doing too hot right now either.
Yeah, and you want to feel like those companies are you want to root for them. You feel like a certain connection with the developers, a certain connection with the people designing these games. Yeah, I think all of us have this like, I don't know, idealized version of what it must be like to work for a game developer. Those kinds of things. Like, oh, this game is so great. It must be cool to be on the team. And you want to think of those people who are making these things we enjoy as being like our friends, and everything's going great and they're all having a good time at work every day. But that's not always the case. And, I really hope that Bungie and Blizzard and, the companies behind so many of these games, Bethesda, can, I don't know, can bring it back around, because I want to believe that these people are making things that they love and enjoying their time doing it and being well compensated and not having to work too hard and crunch before a game comes out, and all of that stuff. Because I don't know, I just want to I want to believe that the world is nicer than it actually is sometimes. I think we all
Well,
do.
I think there's a lot of complexities that come with this because video games are far more advanced and they're far more expensive to make than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. That's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
You have to hire AAA actors, you have to hire so many different choreographers and 4K rendering companies. There's a lot of people that you have to hire on board to make video games today, and we expect more from video games today than we did many years ago.
Oh yeah.
So I think that it's more expensive to build a video game, but it's also more risky for these companies that are investing so much money into seeing these games come to life. And then you have studios like the studio behind Anthem, for example, as an example. They
Mm-hmm.
struggled even building these games, and I think that it sets a bad precedence when you release a game that you know is going to fail. And I almost feel like that's kind of what happened with a game like Anthem. And some of the microtransactions that are in video games, they feel rather predatory to a point where in certain states, like New York, there's legislation that is being proposed to ban loot boxes in video games.
Oh
So
yeah.
that would change the economic landscape of how video games can be sold.
Yeah,
And I think
Jameson and
part of
Brenna
this,
from the DL have been talking about a lot of these topics on their shows, and I wish Jameson thought he might be able to make the show today, but he hasn't been able to. But I'm sure he would have a lot of thoughts and opinions about these things too.
yeah, ultimately, I think it comes down to finding a balance between allowing these companies to exist and create content that we all enjoy playing without having to crunch, without having to nickel and dime the consumer on content. So maybe it could mean that they create, a $30 pass that everybody buys and they get a bunch of new content in the game post launch. I think that's what we've seen with games like Destiny, for example. And I don't really mind that system. I don't mind spending an extra $30-$40 to get seasonal content for the rest of the year, because if you think about it, you could pay 10, 12, $13 a month for Netflix and watch it occasionally, or you can put $40 into a game that you're going to be playing for the rest of the year. So
Yeah,
there's quite a bit of value there. And I think it's a better system than asking the consumer to purchase loot boxes and maybe spend $150 and not even get the item that you're looking for.
right.
I don't know if that's the answer.
Yeah, yeah, it's tricky. It really is tricky. But when I was thinking about the thing I wanted to bring up in this episode, I almost brought up specifically company culture because of these kinds of topics, but even things that I experience working in my regular job. I recently had a meeting with one of our clients who's a higher ed university, and the company culture at that university is very similar to some bad company culture I've been in previous jobs. But it is so toxic that when it's our job, so part of what I do is search engine optimization for websites. And one of the things that we do regularly, once or twice a year, depending on the client, is a technical audit. We'll look at the website, we'll make sure everything loads quickly, we'll make sure there's nothing broken, all the things that could get in the way of somebody like Google being able to find the content that they want to find and deliver it quickly to people. And so we do this technical audit, and they have a gigantic website, and we go through and we give them basically a 3-page document with all the things we found that were wrong and have gone wrong in it in the last 6 months because of all the different users and, links not going to the right places and redirects and all sorts of stuff. And so we present this to them, and the response is often things like, well, if you guys built the site, then why would that be broken? Like finger pointing. You can tell that that's like a sign that the company culture is just toxic. It's not about, well, let's address the issue and solve it and make sure that it doesn't happen anymore. It's well, whose fault is that? And it's like, well, it's a living, breathing website. We don't know whose fault it was. It wasn't built that way. I can tell you that much, but lots of people use it. Lots of people make changes, and things happen.
Websites expand too. Once you have more content on the website, if it's not properly optimized, then there's an issue there. But also, not everything that happens in SEO is going to be about what's on your webpage. Sometimes it's about external link building that you're doing or maybe not doing to rank, and also your keywords will change from time to time too, whatever you're targeting based on what's happening that time of the year.
Right. And my point is that like having these conversations with them is just, it shows how much the company culture is just lacking, and how much the leadership, how much the people I'm talking to are scrambling to come up with any explanation they can for the people above them who have no understanding about how any of this stuff works, are not able to listen to them and hear them explain it, we're not able to talk to them and explain it. And they're just making these like unilateral decisions about the state of the website without any understanding about how that stuff works. And I have a feeling related to video games that this is something that happens in a lot of these companies, is you end up with a board of directors at a publisher, somebody like Activision or EA, who is probably a very successful CEO or whatever in whatever industry they were in. And they get this opportunity to now work in the video game industry or to just move over from some side industry, but they don't have a real on the ground understanding of the way these things work and what the audiences want. And what, what was the magic that made a game like Halo so popular? Sure, part of it was Microsoft and marketing, but part of it was a company like Bungie that had a really awesome culture that understood gamers and understood what it took to make a good game, and then get people on board with that and believe in it. And it's just not something you can just say. It has to organically come from the people making the games. And it's so easy. It takes so long to grow that, and it's so easy to kill it. So I really hope a company like Bungie or maybe not Bungie, but Blizzard or, Bethesda, some of these companies that have been having these issues are able to rally and, I don't know, the people making decisions understand that sometimes the long play is really trusting the developer to make the decisions that they know that their audience ultimately will appreciate in the long run and will keep them coming back.
Could it be that these companies are too large and they're trying to do too many things?
Yeah.
If you think about it.
Yeah.
I think most of these publishers are really struggling, and they have so many unique IPs that they're working with. So maybe you're absolutely right in the fact that the company culture needs to change, but I think that having a company that's so large and do so many things, you lose sight of that family feeling that you're out there to accomplish something, and you can get lost in everybody's different point of view and having to go through different channels and different approvals. And I think at some point it does hinder a company and holds the company back.
Yeah. I think it's very much a size. The people who are making certain decisions are out of touch with the actual nature of the product. A one size fits all solution for, a board of investors or whoever who think that, well, they can just market their way out of any problem or, just, I don't know, crunch their way out of any problem, make a game good. It's not always the case. Like if the foundation isn't there from the beginning, you're just going to make something mediocre, and it doesn't make sense to invest millions of dollars in a product that is, it isn't really going to do what the audience is actually looking for. I don't know. This is a much bigger conversation. I'm sure there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. So anyway, man, this has been really serious, like very serious topics today on Robots Roundtable. Usually we're much sillier than this. So hey, why don't we change gears a little bit and silly it up?
Let's do that.
So it's just you and me this week, and I looked up a honorific that I thought was super weird that we could try to argue our points for, and I don't know that I even have any sense of what I'm going to say yet. So this week, you know what? I need to pull up last week's. What am I doing? I'm jumping ahead. So last week we had an honorific, and I hope I can pull this up quickly. Do you remember what last week's was? Off the top of your head?
Nintendo Switch versus I think it was a character in Fallout.
Yeah, I'm scrolling back down. Where did it go? There's a poll for this. You know what? I retweet so many things on this account that, oh, here we go. I found it. Nope, that's somebody else's poll. Never mind. I knew I was going to forget something. Nope, that was the previous poll. Did I not put it up? I put it up. I'm sure I put it up. Well, here, I'm going to discuss this week's. I'm going to let you know what this week's topic is, and then we can go back and review next week when I find it. So this week, give it some thought. The question is, who would be more likely to accidentally fall off of a cruise ship? So I'm going to have to think about this while I scroll through Twitter in order to find. This is really good audio, by the way. We are professionals here at Robots Radio. For some reason, I can't find it. I know I got the results. The results popped up like 2 days ago when the quiz ended. I might have to just put it in the show notes or something when I find it. So, do you have any explanation as to why Destiny would be more likely to fall off of a cruise ship?
Well, Destiny has a history of just falling off anything. You know, it gets a lot of hype, the game comes out, and then everybody just takes a poop on it, right?
They'd all take a poop.
If there's any game that you can count on to fall off a cliff or a cruise ship and just fall flat on their face, it's Destiny, it's Bungie. It's happened so many times before, and I must be crazy for playing the game for the many hours that I've played it. But yeah, I think Destiny is very natural to fall off a cruise ship, and I would not count against that happening.
Now, are they so I had this conversation with a friend the other day about how ridiculously scary it would be to fall off of a cruise ship, because when you're like, I don't know, a dozen or more stories up and you're looking down at the water, to be able to see somebody's like bobbing head in the water, not to mention while the cruise ship is moving really fast, they would move very far away very quickly. Like, you would just be gone. But I have a feeling that like Destiny somehow still climbs back up on the ship every time. They fall off and somehow they get back on the ship and then they fall off again and they get back on the ship. What do you think?
They're probably going to run into like a large animal, or by animal I mean like a whale, and just find a way to survive, because they always do. They just
hitch a ride on a whale.
Up, right? They're just gonna hitch a ride. Maybe it's gonna be on some stranded island, and then they're just gonna figure out a way to come back and build up the excitement the way they did on day one. And they always do that. You know, you always count on Bungie. But I definitely see that happening with Bungie. Just one day, they go on a cruise ship and something goes wrong, and they just have to abort, and they all just jump.
Gotcha. Okay, so World of Warcraft, that was the one I brought. It has very little to do with cruise ships, but there are ships in World of Warcraft. And the most recent expansion has everybody visiting islands and traveling back and forth on ships a lot. And the most recent update has Azura, the queen of the Naga, luring everybody into a trap where she like parts the ocean and creates like this big hole, and then all the ships fall in it. And there's flying ships in World of Warcraft, and in many cinematics, people fall off the ships. So, from that more literal perspective, characters in World of Warcraft are constantly falling off ships. Happens all the time. Just all the time, over and over again. Big important characters, minor characters, everybody's falling off ships. It should just be called Fall Off Shipcraft. That's a terrible name. I can come up with a better name. Ship Fall Off Simulator. Nope, that's not it either. Anyway, that's my argument. What was that?
Work in progress.
Work in progress. We'll figure something out. So hey, good news. I found the poll. Yay. All right. So last week, well, first of all, if you think either of us have a better argument, then vote on this week's poll. It'll be up on Twitter at twitter.com/robots_radio. And last week's, here it is. I remember this now. Who is the most likely to be a government spy? And it came down to the Nintendo Switch or talking Edison dolls. That's right. Ken brought talking Edison dolls. And the Nintendo Switch wins 2 to 1, basically 67% to 33. So congratulations, Nintendo Switch.
Wow.
Yeah. You're more likely to be a government spy. Good for you. So, well, thanks, Cornholio, for joining me this week. Man, we had some really in-depth Destiny and MMO discussion and work culture. And I hope your work week goes better than some of the things we talked about on our show this week. It's kind of a downer. So
Definitely working on that. I a little bit behind right now, but I have a lot of time to get caught up. I'm probably gonna take the little doggy for a walk and then start grinding out some work stuff. I have to work on 2 websites that I have to build between today and Wednesday. So it's gonna be a lot of work, but I'm excited.
Well, good luck. Good luck. I know that's
Thanks, sir.
you never know where that stuff goes. Sometimes it's easy, and then sometimes things pop up, and you're like, crap, this is gonna take 2 more hours than I expected, or whatever.
Oh yeah,
So,
or 2 more days.
Or 2 more days. Yeah. All right, man. Well, thanks for hanging out. And for those of our audience who haven't actually gotten a chance to check out the Destiny Show podcast, where can they hear your stuff and reach out to you?
Well, we're on every major podcasting platform. We're on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, and a bunch of other places. We also have a website at www.destinyshow.com. We're on Twitch at twitch.tv/The Destiny Show. And we're also on Twitter at The Destiny Show. And we do have an Instagram where we post rarely. So
rarely.
Could check that out, but do it in a couple of weeks when we actually post something new.
Yeah.
But yeah, we record live every Thursday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and this week we're gonna have Moonvault from Planet Destiny as our guest. So I'm really excited about that, and we're planning our guest lineup for August and September. So I'm really excited to share more news about that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, man, you guys always have really good guests. That's something I need to get better at. It's having every so often I get a guest on, but I'm not good about, it's like every show. You guys just plan it out ahead of time and you just get it done. That's so cool.
Believe it or not, we have guests lined up for the next month and a half.
Yeah.
For a good part of August. I think we're missing 1 date in August, and then 2 dates in September, and we've gotten really lucky. It's been really an awesome journey to go from like pretty much begging people to like be our guests, and now people are more open to just reaching out to us and saying, hey, we should hang out sometime. So it's been a real blast and a real honor to have the guests that we have. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. Well, if you are interested in any of my shows, I am the host of the Fallout Lorecast and the Elder Scrolls Lorecast, and also other shows like Sleepy Time Stories, which, okay, so real quick before we end the show, I had put Sleepy Time Stories and Robots Thoughts on hold because I was like, okay, I'm focusing on this network stuff. I've got other things to do. I've got my main shows. Those are just kind of side projects. I was like, I can come back to them later. They don't have to be regular updates. There's no Patreon, so I'm not going to disappoint anybody who's paying money, that kind of thing. So I hadn't actually gone back, and usually I'm pretty anal about checking the stats on the shows and looking for new reviews like every day. And I just hadn't touched those because they were just not a big priority. I haven't done a show for Sleepy Time Stories since May 21st. I jumped back in to the stats on that. That show is blowing up. I had no idea. No idea. We still only have 5 reviews on iTunes, but that show has almost as many downloads per episode as the Elder Scrolls Lorecast. And there's only like 4 or 5 episodes up. I was just like, holy crap, that's nuts. So anyway, I guess you guys are enjoying Sleepy Time Stories. I'm going to have to get back on that and release some new episodes. So thanks for hanging in there while I took a break on that. That's awesome. Let's see. Anything else we need to tell anyone about? I think you guys know how to get a hold of us. Robotsradio.net for the rest of the shows. And if you have been enjoying Robots Roundtable, we would love to highlight a review of yours. If you can review us on iTunes or wherever you're listening to podcasts, drop us a 5-star review and we will highlight it at the end of an upcoming show. So, well, thanks, Cornholio. As always, it's been a lot of fun, and I'm sure if you can get together next week that we will be chatting then. For everyone else who's listening, next week we might have a very different group of hosts. It all just depends on who can swing by. And we will also be up live at this time next week, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/robotsradio. All right, Cornholio, have a good week.
You as well. Have a great week and good luck with work and everything that you're doing this week.
Thanks, you too. All right, man. Talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. And cut. Well, cool. That was fun.
Yeah, that was a good time.
Good times.
Always enjoy hanging out and podcasting with you. And hey, it's really cool that you mentioned that you do SEO, because SEO has been something that I've been studying for, it's been like 7 years.
Yeah.
And like I've had jobs where I work for, a company, and I almost just fit into the marketing role, and I have to like do all the SEO for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I've read so many books on SEO, The Art of SEO, great book written by Rand Fishkin and
Mm-hmm.
3 other authors.
Yeah. Moz. He does
So
Moz. Yeah.
SEO is really, really cool. I really enjoy the entire process. It's something that I've been very heavily involved in for quite a few years. Is that what you do for your like day job, SEO?
Yeah, that's most of what I do. I'm
Dude, that's
technically a
so
digital
awesome.
strategist, but most of my work is in
Okay.
SEO. Yep, we know we're still on, Geek. How's it going, Geek? Welcome to the show. Yeah, this is
Welcome.
the post show where we get to just kind of chat and hang out for a little bit. Thanks for stopping in. So I'm streaming on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook and Mixer all at the same time. So Geek 00 popped in on YouTube, and the little chat display actually works because it's pulling in all the different chats from different places. So you can see him on the screen right there. So yeah, welcome to the show, bud. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, SEO's been kind of my bread and butter for the last year and a half of what I've been doing mainly. And do you do a lot of freelance stuff, or do you work for another company?
I'm starting to do a lot more freelance stuff. I left my 9 to 5 job last November,
Mm-hmm.
and I've just been doing, side projects, working with clients, building websites for people, and I'm trying to get more into SEO, like more professionally, because I have all the tools. Like I have SEO Power Suite that I use on my computer to do all the different research and to analyze backlinks and do the on-page audits and things like that.
Yeah.
And I've been buying some really awesome software as a service tools recently through AppSumo. One is for optimizing images, which, believe it or not, it's such a big part of SEO, and it's simple to do if you have the right tools.
Yeah, we use some
Where,
plugins for a lot of our WordPress sites.
yeah,
Like Squash, I think it's one of them. I don't remember all the names.
okay.
Um,
I've been using one called Short Pixel. It's been working really great to optimize the images.
hmm,
Cuts down the file size by 80%,
yeah.
80 to 90%, so it makes the images smaller. And then there is a website called gtmetrics.com. I don't know if you've ever used it for analyzing the audits, or like how the website is structured and
Mm-hmm.
how well that's optimized.
Hmm.
But that's something I've been using more and more lately.
Cool.
Well,
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now, taking a look at it. So, I mean, this is like professional time with Robots Radio. Are you looking for more clients and stuff? Because we actually are going to be taking on at least 2 or 3 other higher ed clients, and we'll either need to be hiring somebody or outsourcing some of our work.
yeah, absolutely. I'm always looking to do more SEO stuff, because
Mhm.
that's been my passion for a lot of years, and I am trying to break out into doing more SEO stuff with clients. So yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Well, maybe I'll set up a call with one of the guys at the office. His name's Jarrett. He's he's one of the partners. He's a friend of mine. We've known each other since college. So,
Nice.
yeah, I'll see what his thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's ultimately in charge of the way we do things, but if it looks like a direction we'll go in, I'll let you know.
Yeah, absolutely. That would be really cool.
Cool, man. All right. Well, thanks everybody for hanging out. Geek, thanks for popping in. And, yeah, it must be hard to monitor all of that. Yeah, it's actually this Mob Crush plugin for Streamlabs makes it a lot easier than it used to be. So I don't know if you guys are interested in any of the behind the scenes stuff, but that's what I've been using. It works pretty well so far. So we'll be on same time, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific next week on Sunday. And I'll be streaming again in the evenings, hopefully this week, doing some different games and things. So, all right, Cornelia, I'll let you go and have a good rest of your week.
You as well. Cheers.
All right. See ya. Bye, everybody.